Welcome to EJH British Cars. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since I posted anything, and that's because we've been in the middle of a kitchen remodel. So I've been busy framing walls and all kinds of exciting carpentry stuff. So it's not really appropriate for EJH British Cars. So you guys have gone without me. I'm sorry. Anyway, so I got a couple of days before anything else happens here on the kitchen. So I'm going to get a little maintenance in. We're going to go change the oil in the Rover and take a look around underneath and make sure everything looks good. So I thought I'd take you along. So here is my 1970 NADA Spec Rover 3500 P6. It's been about 12,000 miles since we put the 3.9 liter engine in and the ZF transmission, automatic. It's been running really well. Had it up to Reno and back, which is about 1,000 miles in a weekend. And the air conditioning was very nice. So here's our upgraded motor with our Holley 4-barrel. Here's a video. I changed that to a 390 CFM. I had a 600 on there, but it was just a bit too much for it. The 390 has been very nice. It runs better gas mileage, starts easier. Doesn't quite have the top end that it did, but it didn't lose much. Other than that, it's been pretty reliable. There's very little that I've had to do with it. The worst thing that happened was this clamp, you notice I got this tied back now, was touching on this pulley, and it actually cut the band of the clamp, and then the hose fell off, and I was 2 blocks from the house, so there was no big deal. You can see where it was touching the edge of that belt right there. See, it's a little frayed. But that was thousands of miles ago, and putting a couple of zip ties in cured that. We haven't really done anything else. Hasn't used any transmission oil. After about the first 1,000 miles, it's been hardly using any engine oil now that the engine's broken in again. So we re-honed all the cylinders and everything when we replaced the piston rings. We kind of did more of a refresh on this engine, but we did original pistons, but new piston rings, new big end bearings, new main bearings, all new gaskets. We put new lifters in. The cam looked really nice, so didn't bother with that. It's just been, just a nice, comfortable car. It's got quite a bit more pep than the old tired 3.5 liter, that's for sure. Anyway, let's get it up on the lift and get the oil out of it. And here's the bottom of the car. And the only thing that makes this a little difficult is this, which I believe is really just a scrape shield so that this doesn't get damaged if you hit a parking curb. Those stops they put in the front of parking spots. But it does make it a little Chinese puzzle to get it out. It's the giant drain plug for the engine oil. I have to do a repair here. I really patched this exhaust system together, and that's just because other than buying stainless steel and having to buy it out of England, which means that with the freight, it's like $1,000 for an exhaust system. I just kind of patched this in, but it seems to work pretty well. This is obviously not a muffler that was designed for here. Originally it had a round muffler, so this is a bit taller, but with the offset, I get it to work around the axles. And then bolt muffler here. Welded a chrome tip on it, so I want it to look like something. And then the Dion rear end. Look at that, brand new rubbers, and they're cracking already. It all looks pretty good. I had to replace the fuel pump about a year ago, and it was a replacement pump to start with. It was a faucet, but it was an ancient faucet. Maybe before they changed all the fuel and put alcohol in, and you can see that it just tore up all the rubber diaphragms inside of it, so not a big surprise, and it's probably been in there 20 years, so can't really complain. This is the sensor for the speedometer drive motor, because there's no output for a speedometer cable in this transmission, unfortunately. This was a Land Rover front half and a Jaguar rear half, and the Land Rover terminated into a transfer case, and that's what a speedometer drive was, and the Jaguar has a speedometer drive in the rear axle, so we just had to do with what we could. And everything looks pretty good under here. I mean, of course, it's not Concorde's clean under here. Wasn't designed to be. This is I mean, I drive it all the time in the winter, in the rain. It's my kind of everyday car, for which purpose it serves very well. Anyway, we'll get that oil filter out and get this plug out, get this oil change started. Well, this is the tricky part. Compounded by, this is the line that runs across for the radiator overflow to the overflow tank that I added. That's not normally here on a regular Rover. And that just fits. This strap has actually got a thinner part right in here, and that just squeaks between the end of this filter and the this thing. What I probably should do is try to, oh, there we go. We can bend that down a little bit, make life easier the next time. I suppose it's probably been hit numbers of times over the years. That's certainly easier. Really try not to unwind this too much because it's just taking up valuable wrench space. This is going to be messy. This is an Gold 1515 filter, which fits in there. They also make a 1516, has the same threaded size and the same gasket size, but the filter is essentially the size of the outside of that O-ring, so it's significantly smaller. And it's the same as a Fram PH 3600, which is what they recommend you use on all the spin-on conversions. So we're going to put this bigger one in because it's what I like, even though it is a tight fit. So don't forget to put some oil on the gasket. Double check the sealing surface that the old gasket's not there. This one's just sort of white out there, so it's really hard to see that it's not, but I've seen some cars where that gasket's recessed in, so sometimes the old one can stay. And then we put it on. This is in such a funny position, it's hard to get it straight and get the thread started, but there it goes. And don't forget, you're not supposed to do these super tight, so what the manufacturer is, it says that once it hits, you do a quarter turn to tighten it. I usually go till it's just snug, and then I usually use my wrench and I turn it an additional quarter turn. So this is the, I suppose, a radius rod, for lack of a better term, for this car, which has been replaced. It had a brand new ball joint in it, and look at this tie rod, the ball joint cover just fallen apart. It's 2 or 3 years old. So fortunately, Dorman makes replacement boots, and I bought a bunch of them just to have them around so I can, when I see stuff like this, I can just fix it. So I'm going to take that apart and put that boot in there. Well, first I need to take the cotter pin out. Easy enough. And of course, we'll put a new one in when we put it back together. It takes a 1-inch socket, and an impact tool is always nice for stuff like this. Nice and easy. Here they call these pickle forks. I don't know what you call them in England. That'll put a bit. There we go. So this is sold as a NAPA Solutions brand, which I think are made by Dorman. 6501178, and what you really want to match is this diameter of the small hole, and of course it's rubber, so it just needs to be close. And as you can see, it's a bit longer, but I'll just take a pair of scissors and trim that down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll get back to you. So I'll just hold it up there, get a good estimation of where I need to cut. These are just a pair of, actually bought these at my local grocery store, but they're really nice scissors. There it is. I left it maybe 1/8 of an inch long. a lot easier to trim a little bit up more off than it is to trim a bit back on. This cut's really easy too with these good shears. So I pack some grease into this and also put some on here. These ball joints do not have grease fittings, and whatever grease was in here, I'm sure it's been going away with this bad boot on there. So for the sake of, nickel's worth of grease, I'll go ahead and pack some in. It's just wheel bearing grease, nothing fancy. That goes over like that. Goes back on there. Impact tool is really nice for this because if you're just doing it with a wrench, it's so easy for the shaft just to spin. There we go. And we've just got to find our cotter pin hole. Right there. It's had a good snugness and a brand new cotter pin. I'll have to go get one out of the garage. Nice new cotter pin. Fold it over. Now the level plug on this is on the front. Kind of tucked into this corner here. The one on the back, which is down low, is the drain plug. And make sure you take the right one out. Now we'll just see. A lot of times if these are just right, you get just a little drop of oil, just like that. And you take it apart. So that looks good. Don't be fussy. See, I covered the end of my finger, so that's just full. So that's great. I've not had to put any oil on this. There's a magnet on the end of here. You can see there's just a tiny little bit of debris on it, which is pretty normal. You always get a little bit of debris from gear sets, whether they be transmission or rear axle. And of course, this oil's not filtered. So we'll just clean that up a little bit. Get the little bits of metal off. Put that back in. So here are the 3 nuts. And it's a 1/2-inch wrench and a nice long extension. And they're not bad, but they're not as tight as they should be. It's been several thousand miles since I did them, but it's pretty easy when it's up on the left like this. I'm going to go around and, star pattern there. I suppose it's 3 bolts. You can't do star pattern. You're either going clockwise. Get this back down on the ground and put some oil in it. So because this is a flat tappet motor, I use 2050 because it has higher ZDDP concentrate than anything else. That's because this is not, none of the manufacturers recommend it for use in a new car or newer cars, because the ZDDP can affect catalytic converters. So this is the 2050 of any brand typically has a lot more ZDDP in it than any of their other oils, other than special high mileage oils or something like that. So because of that, I've been putting in some STP oil treatment. I've been doing that for about 20 years now, and we've had good luck with it. That I know Jane's TR7 that she used to commute to work, we put 60,000 miles on that car, and it already had 120 on it, I think, when we bought it with the original engine. As far as I know, it had never been rebuilt, and it was fine. And we don't do that kind of mileage in any of the other cars, but certainly haven't had any trouble. I don't know if it actually does anything. It seems like it does, but who knows. But it's not doing any harm either, so it doesn't bother me to put it in. The only Aggravating thing is it's very thin. Some 2050. I think this is going to take, oh, this is a 5-quart jug, so it's probably going to take just about all of it. That's one good thing about being it's almost 100 degrees out here today. This stuff pours nice and fast. Now it's just on full, but the oil filter's empty, so I'm going to start it up, let it run for a minute. Oil circulate. So you see standing right here, the noisiest thing is like the fan belts and everything. And it's not very loud in the car. But when we come back here, it's significantly louder. It's not crazy, it doesn't have that bark to it, but wouldn't mind it to be a bit quieter. About half that loud would be nice. Well, hope you enjoyed that. Something a little less complicated than restoring the TR2. Just some routine maintenance and checking up on things. The car looked really good. The only thing we found really wrong was that one front suspension ball joint cover, and that was easy enough to fix. Only a couple of bucks. I don't think I mentioned that. I gave you the number for that one, and that's about the biggest one you can find. But if you go in, change the last digit, I think they have about 6 or 7 sizes, but they're pretty much sequential. So if you put all the numbers but the last 2 and just put asterisks, or even just the last one and put an asterisk, you're going to get most of them up there. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, join, share, send me loving kisses. We'll see you next time.